1 minute, right? How it is that we can ace module 1. We're going to try to move through this as quickly as possible because I don't believe that that it actually makes sense for us to spend a lot of time cramming information, especially the night before an exam. So we're going to move through this as quickly as possible. But as is customary, I'm going to ask you that if you have a comment to make, if you have a question to ask, feel free to interrupt me at any time. Okay? All right. So let's get right into it. So our objectives for today, we want to be able to define the term discourse type, state and explain discourse types, define terms, writer's purpose and tone, analyze some paragraphs to be able to identify specific discourse types, explain the rhetoric modes of expository writing, and to list and explain techniques and strategies of exposition. So we're going to divide our presentation in 2 phases tonight. First of all, we're going to be recapping the different types of discourse or the modes of writing, and then we're going to be taking a look at 2 past paper items linked to module 1 and how it is that you can answer those questions based on module 1. Alright, so that's what we're going to be doing. My PowerPoint will just work with me. Let's just go back. Okay, alright, so we're going to be starting here, gentlemen. We're going to just do a little background, a recap of sorts. We're going to be looking at what is a discourse type, and this discourse type that we're talking about is actually similar to the same thing as modes of writing. So a discourse type can be defined as a particular type of material or writing based on a particular purpose of the writer. There are 4 discourse types that writers may use, and in some cases, writers may decide to use them separately or to employ a combination depending on the purpose intended to be achieved. Now that last line is pretty important because we're always stating that there's no pure genre of writing, that the genres can actually overlap. Alright, can somebody just give me an example of how a genre can actually overlap, or a discourse type or mode of writing? How can there be some form of overlapping occurring in that regard? Anybody? Yep. Nobody wants to answer that? Alright, go ahead, Damas.
So I mean by
Yes. Maurice, go ahead, I'm hearing you.
So I mean like the use of more than one genre?
Yes. So give me an example of how it can actually be there, how there can actually be some form of overlapping occurring with the genres or the modes of writing. Anybody? Dominic, your mic was on a while ago. You want to answer that?
Sir, I just got on. My internet is a bit shaky, sir.
Okay.
So,
did you hear the question?
I never heard the question, sir.
Okay. I was asking the gentleman, how is it that there can be on this slide that are you seeing the screen now?
Yes, I'm seeing the screen.
All right, so the last line which says, in some cases, writers may decide to use them separately or employ a combination depending on the purpose to be achieved. So I'm asking, can you give me an example of how it is that a writer may end up using more than one genres in one written piece? Yes.
Sir, I have an example, sir.
All right, go ahead, Maurice.
Oh, sir, can I have a story where you're describing the setting and what took and the characters and what took part in the story, sir?
Very good. So right within the story, which is one type of writing in and of itself, which is narrative writing,
Yes,
obviously you're going to use descriptive writing a part of the narrative. All right. So that is one way. And it's kind of weird because you could actually use that same narrative writing with the description for the purpose of persuading. You get what I'm saying? So that is how everything can actually be intertwined. Dominic?
Okay.
Okay.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
All right.
So,
Yeah,
like,
go ahead.
so in the gist of things,
Yes.
like, author can employ the different types of discourse. Like, for example, persuasive writing, where in an exposition, for example, to guide or to get the reader onto their side of the argument, or it can be used in a, like you said, a narrative
Yes.
Descriptive writing can be used in a narrative, you know, because that's one of the necessary things.
Yeah, man. So everything is actually intertwined here. Very good. Good. All right. So let's move on. Next slide. All right. So as you guys know, there are 4 basic discourse types. There's
Yes,
exposition,
sir.
there's narration,
Alright.
there's description, argumentation, and persuasion. Maurice, mute your mic. I'm getting a feedback.
Oh,
All right, no problem. But if you have something to say, just unmute it. All right, good. So there's exposition, narration, description, argumentation / persuasion. Remember, argumentation and persuasion, those are interchangeable, but there is a little bit of a difference between both of them, and we're going to be exploring that in a few. All right, let me put somebody on the spot before I even show you the slides. Welcome, Gavin. Can you hear us? Just indicate. Jordan, do you want to just run through the 4 discourse types? You want to just give an explanation of them? Let me see who else is
Um,
here that I can put on the spot. All right, go ahead, Jordan.
all right. Well, description is describing an event or a series of events and the characters that might have taken place in the event.
Yes.
Narration is the telling of a story or the telling people of a sequence of events that occurred. Exposition, I think, is where you're more, it's more of an informative piece of writing.
Yes.
And argumentative or persuasion is where you're trying to make somebody see something from your point of view,
Very good.
where the difference is that in one of them you show them the both sides of the spectrum, and in one of them you only show them your side.
Very good. So thank you, Jordan. So it all starts with an understanding of the different modes or genres of writing. Gentlemen, once it is that you can identify a particular mode of writing, it makes it a little easier for you because everything is actually working together, particularly when you're going to be answering the question for module 1. Once I identify the mode of writing, obviously the purpose is easily identifiable. All right, I'm able to identify the purpose based on that mode. And if I'm looking at that particular mode, more than likely the organizational strategies, the language techniques, the tone, all of these things will be predictable. So let me just give you a quick example. If we're talking about something like a persuasive passage that if in the exam you happen to find out that it's a persuasive passage, right there and then you know obviously you're going to be using some certain verbs to explain the purpose, which is to persuade. So you're just using verbs to explain how it is that the writer is persuading somebody. So it's either cajoling or convincing or sensitizing or raising awareness. And then more than likely, once there's persuasion, there's certain language techniques and strategies that will be used. More than likely, there's some form of cause and effect, some form of problem and solution. And then now for the language techniques, obviously there's going to be some form of rhetorical questions. There will be some form of statistic involved. There will be repetition. So all of these things are actually intertwined or aligned. So that is why I'm actually doing this background. It's not just because we're trying to kill time, but once it is that you can identify these different discourse types, then you're able to understand the strategies that will be aligned to them. All right? Good. Next slide. Any questions? All right, Dylan, you're online?
Fine.
All right, read this slide for us, please.
Discourse type exposition. In this type of discourse, the writer seeks to bring clarity to ideas, to analyze a situation, define a term, and give information. Expository writing is best known as informative writing. Expository writing provides information without inculcating the writer's feelings or views. This type of discourse deals with facts, beliefs, and ideas.
Thank you very much, Dylan. Good. So everybody, what is one word that can be used to cover everything that we've stated about exposition, especially the second point there, whereby you're not going to... Starts with O. If you're not going to be including your feeling or views.
Observe.
Objective.
Objectivity. Who said objectivity? Nikari? All right, good. So obviously this type of writing is the kind of writing that is objective. So you're not imposing your idea, you're not imposing your view. You're just stating the facts and stating it for the purpose of informing the reader. There is a fine line, gentlemen, between the persuasive and the expository. Sometimes students are unable to distinguish the two. Once it is, gentlemen, that you're reading and you're asking yourself, does this sound opinionated at all? Does it sound subjective in any way at all? Obviously, it is persuasive. No doubt in your mind at all. All right? Once it is, you realize that they're just giving the information objectively. There is no persuasion involved. So they're simply exposing, as Maurice said. Next. Okay, narration. This form of discourse presents action to create a story. It can be used to report on events, present information, explain procedures, illustrate abstract ideas, and support arguments. A narrative piece is concerned with actions and seeks to present readers a sense of what any persons witness in any action. So, gentlemen, if it is that you actually have a report that is given to you, report actually falls within narrative writing as well. So a report is expository, giving you the information as to what took place, but because they're relaying to you what exactly took place or the sequence of events as it unfolded, it would fall within this discourse type as well. Narration, gentlemen, is hardly seen in paper 2 for Comm Studies. The most they will actually give you is a description. But if it is that they give you a narrative piece, please note, gentlemen, that there are certain strategies that will be linked to narration in and of itself. Suffice to say, gentlemen, if it is that you realize that the piece is not narrative, I don't want to see anybody talking about foreshadowing or flashback. It doesn't occur at all unless you're reading and you realize that it is a story. If there is any doubt as to whether it is a story, just scroll down to the bottom of your page where it is that you're going to be seeing the bibliography, so to speak, and you're going to look to see if it is coming out of a book or a story or something like that. All right. So only time you're going to talk about flashback and foreshadowing is if you get a story. Don't even mention flashback and foreshadowing if it's descriptive. It only works really with narratives. All right. Is that clear to everybody? Any questions based on what I just said? Can just indicate by saying yes or thumbs up or something.
I understand, sir.
All right, who just said that? No. Who just said that? Dylan? Noel?
It is me, sir.
No,
Oh, all right,
sir, it's not me.
Gavin?
But I understand.
Okay.
I understand, sir.
All right, Gavin, good. So, Gavin, you're going to take this next slide for us. Read this one first, please. Description.
Right. Descriptive writing appeals to the senses and is very sensuous, appealing to the taste, feeling, sound, and smell. This type of writing creates images to help people visualize things, provides details and comparison, and is often used with explanations.
Very good. So what I want to zoom in on there, based on what Gavin just read, you can mute your mic again, Gavin. Thank you. Based on what we just read, what I want you to realize is that this type of writing really helps to appeal to the senses. All right, and there is a particular jargon that is used for all of the senses. You'd remember this from CXC. What do we call the appeal to smell again? That is called what?
Olfactory.
Thank you. The appeal to taste.
Gustatory.
Thank you, Samuel. Thank you, Dominic. The appeal to sight obviously is visual. The appeal to touch, what do we call that?
Tactile.
Tactile, very good. All right. Now, what I want, if it is that you're writing the essay, you can actually utilize some of these words if you get a descriptive passage. And remember, we're looking beyond the mock exam. So not just the mock exam tomorrow, we're talking about in the final analysis when you have to write that paper. So if it is that you get a particular descriptive piece or a narrative piece, you can use some of these terms coming out. So you say that the writer is using certain techniques to appeal to the tactile image, and then you go on to say how it is effective, which we're going to get to in a few. All right, argumentation. You are going to read this for us now, Mr. Samuel. Your time.
This piece of writing emphasizes persuading or convincing the reading audience that the claims of the writer, speaker are true.
Mm-hmm.
It is a reasoned method of persuading or convincing others to accept or acknowledge the soundness of a position or claim.
Thank you very much, Samuel. So that last line is pretty important. It's not just giving your views or giving your opinion. You have to allow the audience to see how it is that whatever it is that you are saying is sound, is practical, is logical, pretty much if it really makes sense. And there are some techniques that you have to use to get these people to believe what you are actually saying. For example, one technique is repetition. Everybody knows that. How does repetition work in persuasion? This question is for Mr. Nikari. Talk to me about the repetition.
So can you repeat the question?
Okay, sorry about that. I think I'm talking too fast. All right, Nikari, I was asking that when you are doing what I was saying, that when you're doing persuasion, repetition is a strategy or a technique that can be used. So I was asking, how do you think the repetition is effective as a persuasive tool or device or technique, whatever it is you want to call it?
Repetition is effective because it constantly brings back the reader to the main point. So when I keep repeating and repeating something over and over again, you start to pay more attention to it.
Very good. Good. So once it is that you can grab the audience's attention by getting them to listen because you're repeating, that is going to make it effective because you have a greater chance of getting them to understand and believe your point of view if it is that it is repeated. Also, repetition adds to emphasis as well. Everybody agrees, right? So once it is that you repeat something, you have to say it in over and over in order for it to sink in, to be emphasized. That is why, gentlemen, when you see persons are writing jingles for commercials and there is a particular tagline that is repeated, it is deliberate. It's not just because it sounds good. But if it is repeated over and over and over and over again in the 30 seconds there's a greater chance of you getting the message, there's a greater chance of it sticking, and there's a greater chance of you doing what it is that they want to persuade you to do. And not only repetition in the time frame allotted to a commercial, but if the commercial itself is repeated within the week on several days, the next time that you go into a supermarket and you see the product, it may jog your memory based on the repetition of the particular commercial. All right. So yes, that's a commercial, and that example may be a bit far-fetched, but the same thing works in the passage that you're reading. So if the person is repeating one line, it's obviously for emphasis and to get you to understand and to remember what it is that they're saying. All right, persuasion on the other hand. Mario, you want to read this one first? Mr. McPherson. No? All right. First, all right, go ahead, Mario.
No, sir, I'm fine.
All right. Persuasive writing involves the writer's use of appeal to emotions and ethics to persuade his audience. Writers or speakers usually employ three types of appeals in persuasion. What are those appeals, everybody? Come, everybody, this is first form work, What are the names of the appeals used in persuasion? Logos, thank you, very good. Logos speaks to what, Samuel? Logos, ethos, and pathos. Logos speaks to logic or reasoning. Pathos speaks to emotions, and ethos is the other one, and that speaks to credibility. So there's logos, logic, pathos, emotional appeal, and the final one is ethos, which is credibility. So a lot of persons, when they're doing persuasive writing, they normally tend to try to employ a mixture of all of them. So trustworthiness in establishing credibility, audience becomes aroused through the emotions, that is for pathos, and logos, which is logics. When you're trying to convince someone of a particular argument or a particular thing, you want them to be able to see the soundness of what you are saying. That's why you're speaking to logos. You want them to be able to be touched in terms of their emotions, that is pathos, and then ethos obviously is a final one. If it is that you can get somebody who is an authority on the particular topic or subject, it makes your persuasion a little bit easier. So yes, we know about this, but we should be able to spot the implementations of the implementation of the appeals at play within the particular extract that you're reading, if it is that you have received something that is persuasive. Okay? All right, and the organizational structure or pattern in discourse types. For exposition, now this is where we're getting closer to home. We're going to be talking specifically about the organizational strategies and the language techniques. One thing that I found coming out of the little practice exercises that we did in class is that some persons are able, of course, to identify the particular techniques, but there are other persons who are just throwing in every single thing that they know from the list that I gave you in class. You can't do that. Please ensure that whatever it is that you're talking about is relevant to the context of the passage that you are given. So don't just tell me that there is use of analysis when the person is not analyzing anything. They're just telling you the information. All right? So be specific in terms of what it is that you're seeing in the passage. So exposition, the organizational structure of this type of writing would include definitions, comparison, contrast, illustrations, analogy, and cause and effect, process analysis, subject analysis, and problem and solution. Writing generally is logical and coherent and would have a main idea or a thesis as well as a sub-idea or supporting details. All right? Narration. Narrative writing is usually organized along a chronological order and time sequence. Now, just stick up in here. I hope everybody's seeing what I'm doing. I am linking all of the, you remember the list that I gave you in class? That list with the organizational structures or strategies, that was pretty generic. So what I'm doing now to enable you to be able to do better in the exam, I'm linking all of the specific strategies to the respective genres or modes of writing. Everybody get that? So let me just, yeah?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me just go back a bit. For the organizational structure for exposition, there is definition, comparison and contrast, illustrations, analogies, cause and effect, process analysis, subject analysis, problem and solution. Did I say cause and effect? Yes, I did. All right, so these are some things that would be linked to exposition. Please be on the alert, however, because as we started out our meeting tonight by stating that there is no pure genre of writing, the same things that I've mentioned here can actually be employed in argumentation or persuasion as well. Narration, we're looking at chronological order and the time sequence, same thing as periodic development. This type of writing includes the following features: the use of dialogue, action, dynamic words, conflicts, and problem and solution setting. All right, so these are some features associated with narrative writing, which everybody knows already. But what is interesting there is that with narrative writing, there is normally sometimes problem and solution. I want to see if you guys are thinking, can anybody understand why it is that the problem and solution structure would be linked to narrative writing? Should I put somebody on the spot, or is anybody willing to take that one? Any volunteers? Dominic?
You know, like how in lower school we used to have this thing about rising action and those
Yeah,
type of things.
yes.
Alright. So now, for every short story, there's always what's like the main point, right? And then the main point doesn't necessarily have to be what you say a problem, you know, but it's a main point, and it attracts everybody's attention. And then you always for that like a short story, there's going to be a conclusion as well. So the conclusion would also somewhat solutions.
Very good. So you link to the climax, and the conclusion, I guess, as you're saying, would be the solution, also coming from the word resolution. Let me just see what is being typed here. Samuel said it is the most interesting. All right, so you're referring to the climatic aspect of the narration, and as such, if we're using problem and solution, you can understand how the problem was developed from the rising action, as Dominic said, and then afterwards, obviously, there would be a conflict, and then coming down towards the end of the narrative, there's going to be a falling action and a resolution, which is how solution could actually come as well, all right? So the writer who is writing the story tells you about this problem, and then they battle it out, and then there is some solution that may be offered in the narrative. So that is why problem and solution may be employed there. For description, there are some features of description. The structure of this writing includes appeal to the senses, descriptive words and phrases, mood, tone, figures of speech. Argumentation. The structure of these types of discourse includes facts and opinions, refutation, counter-arguments, appeal to authority, emotional appeals, and personal experiences. And if it seems like I'm rushing this part, forgive me, it's because I know that you know this from lower school. So this background is just to assist you when you're actually writing the essay itself. All right? Do I need to delve into any of these, or is everybody clear? Any questions? Okay. Now, obviously, in paper 2, you're going to be asked to write about the writer's purpose as well as the main point. And the writer's purpose, the aim or the goal of the discourse the writer's purpose is the aim or goal of the discourse, and is important because it will dictate the type of text to be produced. Similar to what I said earlier, everything is aligned. The purpose of this text is generally determined by the effect a writer wishes to have on his audience, that should be on his audience, regarding a subject matter. All right? So here are some, as we did in class, some words that you can use. Gentlemen, I understand that one way in which you can impress your examiner. It's not like you'll get any more marks, but it makes your writing, I guess you'll get the marks for expression. What you can do is utilize some of these verbs to assist you in talking about the purpose. So rather than just saying show and tell, you can use some, oh, I'm looking at the wrong slide. Right, so you can use some verbs like to educate, create, raise awareness, to inform, to sensitize, that's for exposition, to convince, to persuade, to influence, to force, to cajole. Those are words that you can use for persuasion. Narration is evidently self-explanatory, to tell a story, or it may be to entertain, or it may be to create humor. And description now may be to create awareness, or to using sensory details, or to describe. So those are some words that can be used. Check your notebooks for the longer list. Okay, now according to this, they say never use to highlight or to show as purpose verbs. That is them being a bit pedantic, nitpickers, all right? It's not that you should never use it, but we are suggesting that you actually stay clear of these words to make it sound like you really know what it is that you're saying. There are some persons who argue that the word highlight or show can be vague. I don't agree with them, but to be on the safe side, try to just stay away from just to show or to highlight. So just remember the verbs that can be employed here. I'm going to come back to this. after this. All right, so we're going to do this quick activity before we move on. The first one says she did not sit the Spanish exam in May. I think I did this in class. I don't quite remember. Number two, therefore the expression is meaningless. We jumped in the back of the pickup and headed towards the beach. We were in for a fun-filled day. Little did we know that some of us would not have made it back. Look out, girl, someone screamed. And the next one, Seth draped the multicolored satin scarf around her neck as she strutted down the runway. Okay, let me see who hasn't spoken in the room just yet. All right, I'm going to open this one up to everybody. So what you're going to be doing is that you're trying to match the mode with the excerpt that has been provided there. So the first one, she did not sit the Spanish exam in May. That could be argued as being...
No, expository.
All right. Therefore, the expression is meaningless. What does that sound like?
Argument.
All right. That's Jordan speaking. Jordan, can you tell me what it is that actually helped you to know that this was an argumentation?
Okay. Well, it started off with therefore, and and normally when people say therefore, is after they've
Right.
presented their point
Good.
and showed why they believe it's true.
Very good. So if you're going to be saying therefore, as you rightly said, it's coming after a point, but not only that, as Jordan said, it sounds like there is some form of a rebuttal that is taking place. So somebody has made a particular point, just like Jordan said, you want to show them that they are wrong, so you're going to be using a word like therefore, the expression is meaningless. So it obviously sounds like it's a part of an argument or persuasive piece. Very good. All right. Now, these two, a lot of persons tend to confuse what is number 3 and what is number 4.
Number 3 is narrative.
How you know
And
it's narrative?
it's evidence because of the use of dialogue.
Very good. And then the other one would be descriptive
It's
because?
descriptive. It's purely descriptive, sir.
Yes.
And there is no plot or setting or anything being developed or anything.
All right, very good. So it's obvious that they're bringing attention to appealing to the senses based on that one little line. You're able to see that, right, Maurice? Very good. So descriptive versus narrative. Remember, gentlemen, don't confuse them. Descriptive, you're just describing. I don't want to use that word, but you're just describing what it is that you're seeing. From your perspective, you're appealing to the senses, you're using adjectives and you're using adverbs. But on the other hand, with narrative, you're actually relaying a plot, a series of events. And if it is that you're still confused, there's one thing that separates the two. As Maurice said, one has a lot of dialogue or dialogue, the other has no dialogue at all. So the description does not have dialogue. The narrative has dialogue. So those are two things that you can look out for if you are confused. Number one, I am of the view that air transport continues to offer a great combination of convenience, speed, and safety unmatched by any other means of transportation. Number two, getting lost can be a frustrating experience. Last summer, 3 friends and I took a camping trip to Wise Falls. We loaded our camping equipment and started for the campground. Number 3, the little trees had real scratchy barks and were bristled with leaves and needles. Some of the branches held tiny pine cones, walnuts, apples, and pears. And number 4, the rocks found on the earth and the moon are composed of the same minerals and elements. Number 4 is evidently
Expository.
yes. Number 3,
Descriptive.
all right.
Descriptive.
Yeah. Number 2
Is narrative.
narrative. All right. Why is it narrative, Dominic?
All right. It is narrative because what is it? Okay.
Sir, can I answer?
Oh.
Who's going to answer?
Okay,
Dominic or Maurice?
Maurice, you can answer.
All right, go ahead, Maurice.
Sir, it's talking about a past event, sir.
Mm-hmm. So it obviously sounds like he's going to be relaying, even though it's a past
Yes,
event,
sir.
you're going to be getting a series of events that actually took place as well. All right, so even though it's a past event, he's going to be telling you exactly what happened. So you're getting the fact that he's setting you up for a plot. Very good. And then the first one now, what is it that lets
Sir,
you know that it's, yeah?
That would have been
Dylan?
sir,
Yeah, go ahead,
yes,
Dylan.
sir. Sir, my internet was a bit. Sir, my internet was a little down, sir. I'm kind of lost in a sense.
Okay, what we're doing in this section, Dylan, is that we're looking at some examples of discourse types. So remember we said there's narrative, persuasive, expository, and argumentation. So what I'm doing is that I have an
Right.
excerpt of each type. So we're just trying to figure out based on the one sentence which genre or which mode it would actually fall into. So we just identified number 4 as expository because it obviously sounds that information is being given. Number 3 is descriptive because of the use of the visual imagery and also the use of the adjectives. Number 2 sounds narrative because it sounds like they're preparing you for a story or relaying something that happened in the past. So it's like a report or a story. And number 1 now is persuasive. But I was asking, how is it that you're able to know that it's persuasive?
Oh, sir, it's comparing the different type and transport comparing to
But
the air transport.
but if you compare it, we could have easily well say that that's expository because remember that's a feature of expository.
Sir, they're telling they're basically persuading someone by telling the advantages of the air transport, sir.
Very good. And not only that, Maurice, the mere fact that he says that I am of the view. All right. So the mere fact that he says the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words,
Oh,
right,
yes,
it
sir.
suggests that it is opinionated. So he's not just giving you the information, he's not just comparing and contrasting out of the blue. He's actually doing it from his perspective. Got that? Wonderful. All right. Move on. Okay. Strategies and techniques used in exposition, organizational strategies. We know this already. Classification and division, problem and solution, cause and effect, compare and contrast. Gentlemen, if you cannot remember any other strategy linked to exposition, one of these 3 must be in the extract. There must be some problem and solution, there must be some cause and effect, there must be comparison and contrast. And all you need to do is write about 2. Well, of course, if they ask you for 3, you write about 3, but you really need just to talk about 2. All right. So once you identify the passage as being expository, it must have some comparison and contrast, some cause and effect, some problem and solution, or some classification and division.
Sir, explain classification
Sir,
and division.
explain
Thank you.
classification division, sir.
All right. If it is that you are going to be exposing the writer, what am I saying? If you're going to be exposing the reader to a topic, you cannot tell the reader everything in one go because that is going to lead to something that we learned in September called information overload. Yes? So if I'm going to be exposing you to a topic, let's say I'm going to be talking about Wolmer's Boys School, and I'm exposing you to information about Wolmer's, I am going to have to classify the information that I'm seeing into categories or into genres or into segments because I can't just tell you everything about Wolmer's. So in one paragraph, I may tell you about the history of Wolmer's. In the second paragraph, I may tell you about its the culture of Wolmer's. In the third paragraph, I may tell you about the academic standards. In the fourth paragraph, I may tell you about the disciplinary system. The fifth paragraph, I'm going to tell you about the prefix. So that is one way in which you can organize. Remember, an organizational strategy speaks to paragraphing. From you being in first form, when it is that you write something for English class, the English teacher marks it in 3 ways: content, organization, or expression. The organization that we mark, the grade given to organization, deals a lot with your paragraphing and the structuring of the information that you have to tell us on paper. All right? So when you're classifying and dividing something, that is a key strategy that is always used in expository writing. Okay? One of you remind me of your topics from the exposition IA speech.
The topic, sir?
Yeah.
The use of mathematics to predict and save lives.
The use of mathematics to predict and save lives. How did you organize your material, Maurice, for the speech? Just give me like the broad headings that you focused on.
Sir, well, I focus on different professions that utilize mathematics.
Good.
And
You hear what he said, everybody? He started out by saying that he focused on the various professions that use mathematics to save lives, right, Maurice?
yes, sir.
Him looking at the different professions, that in and of itself is some form of classification. So if he's talking about teachers, he's going to be talking about teachers in one paragraph or one segment of his speech. Then he's going to move on to talk about another profession, etc. Give me another category that you focus on.
Sir, the benefits, sir.
And then you spoke about the benefits. All right, so Dylan and Samuel, have I answered your question sufficiently? Are you clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, next. Continued, there's general to specific, spatial order, process analysis, subject analysis, personal experience, and periodic development. Now that one called spatial order, please, 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 please remember, gentlemen, spatial order is linked particularly to descriptive and narrative writing, specifically for descriptive, but it's used in narrative writing as well. Spatial order, what you can use to remember about...
Not you, sir.
Oh, what you can use to remember about spatial order is the word space. So it's talking about the layout and how you're describing something based on how it actually occurs. So I'm describing the walls, I'm describing a particular room in my apartment. I may start from the entrance and go to the left of the room, then to the right of the room. So, and then up to the ceiling and then describe the flooring. So that is what we're talking about in terms of spatial order, the layout, step-by-step layout. All right. Language techniques, on the other hand, these are employed by the writer. Yeah. Question.
Sorry about that, sir.
Oh, all
I
right.
say about subject analysis and process analysis, sir.
Yeah. Hold on.
Um,
Yes.
what do you mean by that again, sir?
Subject analysis and
Yes.
process analysis is somewhat linked to what we stated about the classifications as well. So subject analysis is really talking about putting your information in subheadings and analyzing it accordingly. What was your
Sir,
topic
could you
again?
just run through them for me, please?
Go again, Dylan.
Sir, could you just like run through them for me, please, sir?
All of them?
Because
Oh,
like
okay.
maybe write a one sentence, sir, just to
Oh,
understand in detail.
for each of these on this slide here. All right. General to
For the
specific.
general specific, yes, sir.
All right. General to specific. I'm going to throw that one. Who wants to take that one?
When something is going from general to specific, you would start with something like a broader thing. For example, let's say talking about cats. You'd, for example, like describing their normal anatomy. Cats. You'd say that cats look a certain way, right? Speak about it. At the end of it, you'll go and say, but this specific cat, this certain cat has so and so on a whole to a certain breed of cats.
So it is somewhat deductive then. So with the general to specific, you start with 1 minute. Start with a broad idea, and then you work your way to something that is specific. So using Dominic's example of cats, maybe I may be doing an expository piece on cats. I may speak generally about the animal kingdom, and then I may work my way down to if eventually talk about the feline, oh gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? The feline species, if that makes any sense, and then I may eventually start to talk about cats. So that's moving from a general idea to specific, and that's one way that some persons organize what they have to say. Spatial order is the layout. Process analysis is explaining something in terms of the process involved. So I'm going to be doing an expository presentation on how to cook ackee and saltfish. I'm going to have to explain the process in a step-by-step kind of format. So process analysis works for exposition because if you're giving information, you may need to inform your reader of the steps or the processes involved in whatever it is that you are talking about. If you're giving directions, if you're giving instructions, these are things linked to explaining a process, and that is process analysis. So you may very well get a piece of an extract where there is process analysis involved, and the person who is speaking or reading, sorry, the person who is speaking or writing that exposition is explaining the process involved. Claro? All right, personal experience, that is self-explanatory. Some persons may arrange the information by dealing with something that would have happened to them. But be careful now, the personal experience is normally used at times with persuasive writing. Because if it is that you're giving personal experience, it may actually come in the way of subjectivity, thereby taking away from the expository nature of the passage. Okay? And periodic development is looking at something that may happen in a matter of time, over time. So you're looking at the evolution of dancehall music, and you may state that in the 1950s, they started with ska, and you explain that in the 1960s, they moved to rocksteady. In the 1970s, I don't know, reggae actually developed, and in the 1980s, so you talk about the development of things in particular periods or time frames or time order, and that is how some persons have also organized their piece. Okay, some person said I was speaking a little too fast. Did that help my explanation of all of this? Have I redeemed myself somewhat?
Yes, sir. I got a better understanding of the specific general
Yes, sir, you
Oh,
description.
have.
okay, my sincere apologies. No, well, I was rushing because I didn't want to keep you guys up a little too late. It doesn't make sense to cram before the night of an exam, so that's why I was rushing. I wasn't conscious, so I'll try to slow down a bit. All right, from here on. Okay, yeah. Moving on. Next slide. Yeah. Questions?
Just asking for personal experience, sir. Couldn't
Yeah.
that be a narrative as well?
Yes, man. Absolutely. Because remember, it's linked to perspective. So
Alright.
maybe even if you're talking from the first person point of view or perspective, personal experience may come out right there. And there are some persons who use personal experience in like persuasive writing to further convince somebody of the point that they're trying to make. So it doesn't always have to be credibility. Sometimes you can talk about this is something that happened to me. And if you share something from a personal experience, more than likely it may convince me to believe what it is that you are trying to say. Maurice, you had a question?
No, sir.
All right. Language techniques. Language techniques are employed by the writer to enhance his written material. Let's look at that again. Language techniques are employed by the writer to enhance his written material. Now, some of you could actually steal that very same line and put in your essays when you're going to be introducing the idea of language techniques. Nothing is wrong, all right? So you know specifically that the language techniques are there for the purpose of enhancing the written material. Now, these include figures of speech, simile, metaphor, repetition, hyperbole. All of the figures of speech, personification, oxymoron, juxtapositions, what other devices exist? Alliteration. you can know what each of the figures of speech would definitely be used for. Let me just highlight something here. If it is that you are reading a descriptive passage, more than likely, figures of speech will be involved. Most of the figures of speech. And you should know that the figures of speech are also aligned to the appeal to the senses. So for example, which figures of speech are you aware of that is usually linked to the auditory sense? There are two in particular.
Sir, like onomatopoeia.
Onomatopoeia is one, and to some extent alliteration
Sir,
can be used.
you have assonance, sir.
Assonance,
And
assonance, yeah? Assonance can be
assonance. Yeah.
right. So assonance can be used as well. One minute, let me check.
Alliteration.
Right, assonance and alliteration. So those things would appeal to the auditory sense. Okay? Now, if it is that you are looking at, let's see, an expository piece, gentlemen, or a persuasive piece, there are some figures of speech that would definitely be linked to those genres as well. Can you think of any for persuasion?
Sir, can you repeat, sir?
All right. For persuasive writing, there are also some figures of speech that can be used or some devices linked to persuasive writing. Can you think of any? Good. So a simile may be used in persuasion. Very good, Noel. Metaphors, absolutely. So they're going to have a lot of analogies. Metaphor, right? Anything else for persuasive writing?
Like you said, repetition, sir.
Repetition, absolutely. Symbolism is going to be
Sir, even
important.
personification, sir.
Yeah, personification may be there as well. Absolutely. Especially depending on the topic. Rhetorical questions, very good, Dylan. So those are the main ones used. Also, gentlemen, please bear in mind that there may be the use of sarcasm. Yes. Remember, sarcasm is a very ideal persuasive tool. Sarcasm and some degree of satire as well. All right, irony, thank you. Irony may be used as well, Dylan, right, to persuade someone. So if you are going to, I don't know if you guys remember this passage, but when you were doing English in maybe fourth form or third form or fifth form, there was a passage that was used, coming to your question, Samuel, there was a passage that was used that was called, "When I grow up, I want to be a minibus driver." Do you guys remember that passage? Or there was one called An Open Letter to the Mouse. No? Okay. Well, there was one that was called When I Grew Up I Want to Be a Minibus Driver. But the person who was writing the letter didn't want to become a minibus driver at all. The person was just using sarcasm to try to highlight the way that the minibus drivers were very aggressive on the road and discourteous. So they use the sarcasm. So if you can think about it, gentlemen, so he said, when I grow up, man, I really want to be a minibus driver. So there's some irony and sarcasm coming out. The one about the mouse, yes, you know that one, Dylan, where the mouse was apparently wreaking havoc um, on the kitchen. But what the person was really trying to do was trying to appeal to the persons who she lived with to be a little more clean. So what she did was that she wrote an open letter to the mouse, but obviously the mouse cannot read it, so there's the irony there. But what she was doing was to try to persuade persons to um, to employ some more, clean habits, because what they were doing by not being as clean as they're supposed to be was that the mouse or the rats rather were infesting the kitchen. So what she did was that she wrote an open letter to her mouse, and she was using a lot of sarcasm and a lot of irony. To answer your question, Samuel, emotive language is used in connection with pathos. Uh, have you ever heard the term, it's not what you say, but how you actually say it? The choice of words, the diction is actually important in this case because there are certain words that can be used to conjure a particular image in the mind of persons and also to get a particular response from persons. So if you think about some of those advertisements used about if you donate $1, you may save a dog's life or something like that. The way in which they actually structured that advertisement, they had to use a lot of emotive language to work on your own emotions. So it's emotive language is linked to the words, the specific words used, as well as the tone used. That is linked to emotive language. Is that clear? All right. Thank you. Moving on. All right. Techniques continued, expert opinion and authoritative evidence, statistical data, scientific evidence, jargons, and technical words. Alright, so expert opinion and authoritative evidence, that is mostly used in persuasive writing. And as you guys did your expository speech, some of you, based on the speech that you did for your SBA, some speeches had to kind of border on persuasion. And what I realized is that a lot of you actually utilized some authorities, not only because we told you to speak about credibility, reliability, and validity, but you recognize that if it is that you use these authorities on the particular topic, it would actually strengthen the arguments that you're purporting. All right, so that's why expert opinion is effective in that regard. Statistical data. Talk to me about the benefits of statistics, Gavin.
Repeat, sir.
Okay, statistical data. Talk to us about why statistical data is, how it can be effective in a particular genre of writing, whether expository or persuasive.
Sir, it can be
Gavin.
effectively.
Hold on, Maurice.
Oh, oh.
Make him go on.
No,
Make him
man.
go on.
No, your time, Gavin. Go ahead, Gavin.
No, make him have it.
All right, okay. Maurice, go ahead.
Yes, sir. It can be effective
Yeah.
like it can be effective in expository, sir. Like when you give percentage, it more or in even persuasion, sir. In persuasive, sir. When you give percentage, like it tell how accurate it is and how
Mm-hmm.
effective a particular product or idea or somewhat or something is.
Yes. So statistics, as I said, will definitely strengthen what you're stating because it allows persons to see the validity of what you are stating, and it really helps to add some form of seriousness to what it is that you are saying. So the statistics are important. Would
Sir,
anybody
'cause
like? Continue, Maurice. Go ahead.
nobody wouldn't buy a product like them say it's 20% effective or
Right. So if it is that you have the statistics that are
yes.
credible statistics, it helps to strengthen what it is that you're saying. Good. Jargons or technical words, who wants to take that one? Other than Maurice and Dominic, I want to include everybody. Jargons, technical words. How would that work in either persuasive or argumentative or expository? Samuel, since you're laughing, your time. You said you want to be an engineer and you're writing a piece about engineering. Why would you need to employ the technical words or jargons linked to engineering in your piece? Okay, nothing to say. Yes, go ahead.
So like make people like believe that you know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. So it adds to credibility and strengthens their argument. Yeah. Anything else?
No. No.
All right. All right. Next slide. So as you said, it helps to engage a particular audience. That's true, Dylan. It helps to add to credibility. And yes, as you said, it allows you to sound as if you know what you're talking about, which is pretty important. And again, also, it would help to engage a particular audience. Remember, we're talking today about audiences and not one size or cap will fit everybody. So if I'm going to be addressing a particular audience and I'm going to try to persuade probably even a group of engineers, I would have to use the jargons that they can actually relate to. Because if they can relate to the jargons, more than likely they're going to be persuaded or find what I'm saying interesting or even important. All right, now the effectiveness of the language techniques. This is where a lot of persons have some problems. So you have identified the language technique, you have given me an example, but when you're to actually explain, remember we spoke about un momento, P, point, E, example, E, explain. All right, so you've identified the point, you've identified the example from the passage, but in terms of explaining the effectiveness of it, many persons have a challenge. So you can actually make a note of this. If you have identified, sure, if you've identified, if you've identified a simile and a metaphor, the simile and the metaphor, those are effective as they help to compare objects and persons and aid in imaginations and visual concepts. The irony helps to keep readers alert. It helps predictability and often leaves an impression on the reader. The repetition helps to drive home a point, as Gary said. And the hyperbole is used when you're trying to impress or influence by advertising a view, statement, or idea. And it's also used to emphasize a point. So I'm going to suggest
Sir,
if you can screenshot this particular screen so you can see everything that is there, because it will help you when you're writing about the effectiveness of the particular device or technique. Yes, Maurice?
sir, you can give an example of iron just to make it clear,
Yeah.
sir.
All right. Maurice, you have three types of irony or two types of irony. Irony really speaks to the opposite in terms of an expected outcome. So that which is expected to happen, the opposite normally happens. There is
Yes, sir.
situational irony and there is also dramatic irony and you have verbal irony. Situational irony speaks to everyday occurrence, but something out of the norm actually happens in terms of that goes contrary to what you would expect to happen. So situational irony, an example of that would be a fireman's house catching on fire. So persons would assume that because you are a fireman, even though it's still practical for his house to become ablaze, the fact that the fireman's
It's
house,
situational.
that would be situational. All right,
Yes,
or
sir.
if you know that Wolmer's is supposed to be an all-boys school and you happen to, I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
girl.
happening, you happen to come to school and you see girls there, that would
Yes,
be
sir.
ironic. I'm talking about lower school, all right? For
Yes, sir.
verbal irony is really sarcasm. So it's sort of sarcasm. So you're saying that what you don't intend to say or that what you don't mean to say. For example, George's is now a situational irony. Oh,
Yes, sir.
oh, Dylan. Because girls can actually go there
Yes,
now.
sir. Ma'am.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
okay. Right. And then dramatic irony, you don't really need to know this one. This is really for the literature specialists, whereby something happens in a particular play or in a movie and the audience knows what is about to happen or what is happening, but the persons on stage are not aware. So you can relate to it. So sometimes you're watching a movie and a person is
Even.
walking towards the kitchen and you know that somebody is standing in the kitchen with a knife and you're there shouting at the screen saying, watch out, don't go into the kitchen. So you know that somebody is in the kitchen to kill him, but the persons in the play itself, they aren't able to relate to that. They don't know what is happening. That is an extent or a degree of dramatic irony. So there are three ironies that exist. Is that clear, Maurice?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Rhetorical questions, they are used for stylistic effect to draw the reader or audience into the expository essay or persuasive, to play on emotional temperament of the audience. That should be to play on the emotional temperament of the audience. So you ask a rhetorical question, you're asking a question you don't expect an answer, but what it does is that it tries to establish some form of common ground. It allows them to actually think about it. All right, emotive language to use, and that's why people use a lot of rhetorical questions. in those cheesy commercials. All right. So, when was the last time you were able to have a a Whopper burger or something like that? I don't know. Or are you tired and stressed? Need some energy? Well, check out etc. So those questions. Yeah. Thank you, Samuel. So those questions would actually work with the rhetorical question. With those rhetorical questions would be deliberate and effective. Okay. Emotive language, to use choice of words or diction to create an atmosphere for the audience to agree or to disagree. So that's answering your question as well, Samuel. Expert opinion, statistical data, and scientific evidence. These aid in the credibility of information to eliminate biasness on the part of the reader, on the part of the author. Jargons are used to establish common ground with the readers and the author to display the knowledge of the writer. Okay. Any questions on this slide before I move on? Yes, Romaro, go ahead. Have a question, Romaro? Welcome, by the way. You're late, man, but welcome. What is this? Okay. All right, Romaro. Romaro, what we're doing is that we are looking at the different language techniques and we're looking at how they are effective. All right. So we've identified previously. Let me go back to the next slide. We've identified similes and metaphors, irony, repetition, hyperbole, and they're really speaking to how it is that they're effective. The simile and the metaphor compares objects and persons to aid in imaginations. The irony helps to keep readers alert, and you know what irony is. The repetition really helps to emphasize and to drive home a point. And hyperbole is really used to exaggerate a situation, but to emphasize a point as well. Or you use it when you're trying to impress. So, exa so generally, sir, you are giving the effectiveness with a definition alongside an advantage. Yes. Yeah, that's what you're doing, Dylan. So that is after you've identified the specific technique and you've given an example. So there must be an example that is deliberately coming out of the passage. All right? So we're almost there, gentlemen. We have about just 3 slides to go. We're going to take a look at, just as we did yesterday, we're going to take a look at one example and we're just going to we're going to take a look at one example and then I'm going to show you how it is that you could answer it. I have a sample essay there. Then we'll take a look at another example and you'll just give me the points. Here. Okay, so obviously you can't write an essay tonight or no. All right, so may I have a volunteer to read this passage? I sent this to your email, so we're just going to be looking at it again. Who wants to read this?
I can read it, sir.
All right, go ahead.
Trade winds kissed me as I stepped off the airplane. Sir, I think I read a bit fast, no, sir. So
No, that's good. We can keep it. The only thing though is that your mic is chipping in and out. You can fix that?
I don't think so, sir.
All right. All right. Read and we'll go ahead. Go ahead, Dominic.
All right. Hold on a second, sir. We're going to my bathroom.
What?
Right, sir. All right. Okay. Trade wind. Stop laughing up to me, man. So.
All right. Sorry. All right. Go on, Lo. Go on. All right.
Okay. Trade winds kissed me as I stepped off the airplane in St. Thomas. Like playful sprites, they tugged my hair, and caressed my skin. Welcome back. They seemed to sing in my ear. I didn't feel at home though, until my husband and I had boarded the ferry to St. John, the smallest of the U.S. Virgin Islands. It was our 7th visit, and with each trip, our passion for St. John has deepened. St. John is among the most romantic spots in the world, an idyllic escape from distracting heights. There are no mainstream tourist attractions, no casinos or nightclubs bursting with co-eds, no marine parks where tourists swim with stingrays. There are, however, unsolid beaches and forests lined with 20-mile, 32 kilometers of hiking trails. There are brilliant sunsets, mountain vistas, mountain tops, and luxurious villas that allow clothing optional sunbathing. It is an island getaway even for islanders. St. John eschews the behemoth hotels that crowd St. Thomas. There are two major hotels, the Westin Resort, St. John, and five-star Canil Bay Resort. Canil boasts 7 beaches, including the public honeymoon beach. The 176 manicured acres, complete with exotic fauna on site, is like golf course without holes. It's worth a visit.
All right,
Canil
thank
Bay
you,
was
thank
founded.
you. Hold on. Thank you. Pick up somebody, Canil Bay. Thank you, Dominic. Canil Bay was founded. Romario, mute your microphone, please. Romario,
Can you hear me now?
yes. Are you going to read?
Where should I start reading from? Third paragraph?
Yeah, but we're actually hearing your television. So you have to either change your room or mute your mic or something. Or mute your mic, Romario.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Let me see. Dylan, can you pick up, please? Canil Bay was founded.
Which paragraph are we at?
We're at the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth
Oh.
paragraph.
Canil Bay was founded at Lawrence Rockefeller, who stumbled on the island during a 1952 sailing ship. Back then, 85% of the island was jungle. Rockefeller purchased the property, which in 1956 he gave to the Jackson Hole Preserve, a non-profit foundation. The unspoiled island is a magnet of nature lovers. For those so inclined, there are two main campgrounds, the National Parks operation in Cinnamon Bay and the Maho Bay camps. We, however, prefer the villas that dot St. John's hillsides. Many sit 800 feet, 240 meters above sea level, offering the perfect vantage point for breathtaking sunsets. Doing it, driving is an adventure, but Jeeps, US 290 weekly, are a great way to go. We stop frequently for food, for four-footed pedestrians, goods cluster on mountain roads, pausing to nibble fronds. A bull and his harem command the right of way. At one point, a wild donkey and an egret crossed one way, while a goat went another. This is an island where beautiful beaches are strung out like pearls on a chain, one gem after another. Among the most private locations is a tiny Jumbi beach. Jumbi, an African word meaning supernatural being, earned its name after the 1733 slave rebellion when slaves committed suicide off its cliffs. At the end of a long day of touring, St. John offers a veritable buffet of romantic dining spots.
Thank you very much, Dylan. So, gentlemen, before even answering the questions, remember I always say try to ask yourself to which genre of writing does this passage fall into? So this sounds like what?
Descriptive.
Alright, sounds like descriptive, but is there any other mode that's interwoven within this descriptive? Expository as well. Very good, Samuel. So yes, it is describing St. John, but it's also exposing the reader. Very good, Dylan. Thank you. It's also exposing the reader to some of the features of this island. All right. So obviously the questions remain the same. State the writer's main point in no more than 20 words. Write an essay identifying the writer's purpose and commenting on the organizational strategies and language techniques used. Comment on the appropriateness of the writer's tone. Before I read what I wrote, is there anything that jumped out to anybody based on the strategies or techniques that you like to identify? Or that you have identified, rather?
It is classifications.
Classifications, yes. Anything else? Jordan, are you still there? How is so quiet?
Uh,
Oh, good.
um, is there is it like is there a little emotional appeal?
How so?
Well, it almost seems like it's where he's describing the island. Some
Mhm.
of the words that he uses,
Mhm.
almost seems like he's almost trying to entice the reader to come to the.
Very good. So that means that apart from expository and descriptive, there is some amount of persuasion that is there as well. All right, very good. So the words, in terms of how it is that is structured, the words is more than just giving us a personal experience as well. Yes, you're right. It's more than just telling us about the romantic spots, but it's trying to lure you into visiting this place. All right, very good. So we identified personal experience. Anything else? What about Levon? Hi, Levon. Are you there? All right. Anything you've identified? Okay.
Um,
Yes.
um,
Yes, Romaro.
could we say that personal experience
Mm-hmm.
um, was used in this piece?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Someone just said that. Yeah, man. Right. So personal experience is definitely there.
Oh,
Jargon.
Samuel just said it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see some amount of jargons. Use mute your mic, please. Mute your mic. Mute your mic. Mario, thank you. Mario, you've seen jargons. What type of jargons are you seeing, Mario? So the specific jargons which are linked to that particular um, island, St. John, right? So they obviously they have their own vocabulary and so words like Jumbi would be used, those jargons that would appeal to persons who know about the islands, yes. Statistics, of course. Spatial order, definitely. So yeah, so all of that has been interwoven here. All right. Now, gentlemen, once you've identified them, in the interest of time, you may not get to write about all of them. So I wanted to just quickly glance at how it is that I've outlined this sample essay. Obviously, the first paragraph, there is the introduction. You deal with the organizational strategies in the next paragraph. You quickly move to the language techniques, and then you answer the next part. I've separated the paragraphs with spaces, and then you come to a simple conclusion. All right, so that makes it easier for you. Remember, gentlemen, when you're in the exam, you're gonna have 3 essays to do back to back. So we don't want to be spending all our time exerting all of this energy. Yes, I did. I sent it to you guys. All right, so you can check your email and you will see an example of how it is that I answered these questions and how it is that we spoke particularly to, oh, I'm going to send it to you, Romaro, how it is that we spoke particularly to each of the strategies, how we identified it, and how it is that we spoke to how effective it was. All right? So you start with your general to specific introduction. But gentlemen, remember, if you don't want to start with the general to specific, we're not going to penalize you. You can literally just start with answering the main point. So you get straight to the main point, and sometimes you're under pressure in exam. You really don't have time to be all elegant and as creative as you would be writing an assignment. All right. So I was writing this. I was able to take my time to write all of these fancy, coin all of these fancy sentences. But under exam pressure, it would be a different story. So you want to stay simple but effective just the same. So remember, people, once you identify something, give me the example and speak to the effectiveness of it, and then you move on to the next part of the question. All right? Let me just read one paragraph for you. Just a disclaimer, gentlemen, I was half asleep when writing this, so please don't judge me. All right? Descriptive essays are always effective in creating a visual picture for the reader based on that which is being described. The passage Unspoiled St. John, written by Pam Carlson for issue 3 of Island Magazine, captures, same thing, falls within said genre. The passage depicts...
Pause.
Pause.
Sir, is it necessary to put the title and the writer?
Yes. No, it's not necessary, but it would be nice if you could give some credence to them somehow.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. To this end, the passage's main idea is that St. John is an island of unspoiled beauty which serves as an avid getaway not only for tourists but also locals. Carlson's purpose, therefore, is to illustrate and by extension highlight the special features of the island of St. John. It could also be argued that the writer seeks to appeal to nature lovers and raise awareness to the island's rich history and culture. Therefore, in order to capture the previously mentioned purposes, the writer Pam Carlson ingeniously utilizes several organizational strategies, language techniques, and an appropriate tone. It's just great. Thank you, guys. I'm not showing up. Come on, it's not about me. So let's look at the way that the introduction is structured there, gentlemen. There are some things that must be in the introduction. First of all, as I said, the main idea must be in the introduction. Okay? You put in the main idea. We want to also highlight the purpose in the introduction. And then we want to move to what we call the thesis statement, which is right here, the last sentence. And the thesis statement is simply talking about how the organizational strategies, language techniques, and the appropriate tone, how these things are employed in the context of the passage. So you can literally copy this thesis statement and use it. It will actually help you when you are writing your essay. Is that clear, everybody? I'm trying to open the chat box and it's not working. All right. Can you send me this, please? This is very helpful. Yeah, man, sure. As soon as we're out of here, I will definitely send it to you. Now, if I could just find out how to erase the marks that I just made on that screen. Technology. Sorry. All right, so let me just move on since clearly that will be there for the rest of the day. All right, so the next screen. This is the final slide, everybody, and we're going to bring this to a close. I'm just going to quickly read to you this passage, which is this is not an expository, this is a persuasive passage. The one we read before was descriptive. The ones we did in class, those were expository. So what I'm doing is kind of giving you an idea of the different genres of writing because you never know which one is going to be coming. So remember the one we did on hybrid cars, that one was a little more expository. After that, I think we did one about UNESCO and illiteracy. Right, so that is going to be the squiggly lines. Yes, I'm trying to erase it, but I don't know how to erase it. Anybody can help me? No? That's funny for this. It's gonna make it worse. Control Z. No, that now, or right click. Oh, wait there. Normal, non-drawing mode. Okay. Yes, clearly Samuel. All. Let's see. Oh, erase all drawings. Got it. All right. Oh no, the soap boss at work. Huh? That's an inside joke, Romario? Okay. Okay, all right. Look at them behind their counters. I figured I'm not even going to ask. All right. Look at them behind their counters. Young, neatly outfitted in their starched fast food uniforms or their linen and polyester Clark suits. They quickly and effortlessly tap the keys on their cash registers and computers, answer phones and look quite efficient, don't they? They seem as if they can think, don't they? Don't let the press close and technology fool you. Many of them can't. Let there be a glitch or a breakdown and then you'll see what lies beneath the suits and uniforms and beyond the counters. Operators of broken down cash registers and computers who will fumble to spell and calculate. And you, older than they, will wonder what they spent their primary and secondary school years learning. You can spot them every day, everywhere. Last week, for example, I saw the brain of a young attendant at a fast food outlet shut down the instant his computer crashed. Before the crash, he had appeared capable as he punched the appropriate keys for orders. But when he was faced with having to write down what his customers wanted, he could, when he was faced with having to write down what his customers wanted, he could only operate in slow motion. I know because to my misfortune, I was about to order a tuna sandwich and a large orange juice when the system failed. After a minute or two of trying to spell the two items, he scrunched up the piece of paper and started writing afresh on the second sheet. I was not sure I'd get the correct meal. All right, good. Yes, Samuel. 2 days after this calamity, I encountered one of Mr. Illiteracy's pals and a Mr. Illiteracy's pals and Miss Innumeracy. Yeah, in a store downtown when I think I brought it to class, right, Mario? I'm not sure. In a store downtown when I was trying to pay a bill of $26.05 with two $20 bills. Yeah, because of a mix-up, the cash register was closed, and so the young girl had to calculate on a paper how much change to give me. After an eternity of scratching her head and calculating on a sheet of paper, she handed me $14.05. But thanks to my standard 5 teacher, I had already calculated in my head that I should have received $13.95. When I told her so, she seemed mentally paralyzed. Luckily, another suited girl who looked senior in age and rank came to her rescue. She whipped out a calculator, pressed a few keys, and presto, gave me the right change, scolding Miss Innumeracy for her bad math. Yup, very good. I left thinking sadly that there was nothing I could do to help to make up for the years they spent. Wait, did I read that properly? I left thinking sadly that there was nothing I could do to help them make up for the years they had spent in their classrooms, not bothering to learn how to read, write, count, or think. All right. So you've identified some of the language techniques, right? Personal experience and language techniques, personal experiences. Great, now my chat box won't open. I'm really get old. Can't see anything.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes,
Yeah,
Ramar.
just click it.
Just click it. I'm clicking it, but does it stop
Uh,
me? Alright, go ahead, Ramar.
yes, sir. Whenever we are commenting on the writer's tone, what are
Yes,
some
sir.
things we need to look at?
Alright, very good question, Romaro. Good question. Hold on. All right, the tone, Romaro, I think for the tone, they would have to ask you to include it. What do you mean by that, Dylan? I think they actually, did that
Or
question?
like,
Yeah.
like in the instructions, sir, they would have to ask you to, if they said
Oh,
you should comment on the tone, sir,
you're right. You're right. Yes. So,
and not okay.
if they you don't necessarily, I think the law is going on to say that you don't necessarily have to write about it, but what you have to do is just talk about the language techniques and the strategies. But if they ask you to write about the tone, you are going to talk about how it is that the tone is used to enhance the purpose of the writer. So you're just going to be using some words to describe the tone, and then you get some examples to qualify why it is that his tone is the way that it is. So for an example, we've identified, Romaro, that the example I just showed a while ago, that would have been persuasive. What are some words that we could use to link to a particular tone that is linked to persuasive? Or that example, what was the tone? The tone was what type of tone? How would you describe the tone, Romaro?
Um, Give me a second, sir.
All right, anybody? How would you describe this tone?
Sarcastic, sir.
Sarcastic, a tone of disgust, a tone of disappointment. Very good, Samuel. Very good, Dominic. Would you say he used a critical tone?
What do you mean by critical, though?
All right. It is obvious that though he was trying to persuade us about the importance of paying attention in school or ensuring that you are literate and ensuring that you are actually literate, he's actually criticizing the individuals who obviously cannot depend on criticizing the individuals who cannot operate without the use of the technology. So there's some criticism going on there. Get me? Right, Dominic?
Yes, sir.
Wish I could see what everybody. Oh, now I can see it. Oh, wow. What if there's a mixture? Yes, if there's a mixture of tones, you mention all of the words used. Pessimistic, yes. Big words, Madden. Okay. Sarcastic tone. What did Madden say? Condescending. All right. Disappointment, disgust. Yes. The next slide, I think, should speak to if a writer wishes us to think negatively about a topic, he may be cynical, unpleasant, or harsh in his diction. And I think that is similar to what Batik was saying a while ago, disappointment or disgust. So read this again. If a writer wishes us to think negatively about a topic, his tone may be very cynical, unpleasant, or even harsh in his diction. So remember, there was some cynicism employed there, and cynicism is always linked to irony and a bit of sarcasm as well. He was very cynical. So he was calling the woman Miss Illiteracy and the man Mr. Illiteracy, and calling the woman Miss Innumeracy or something like that. So you get some cynicism coming out of the tone. And again, gentlemen, remember, as I said, the tone is going to be linked directly to the purpose. Yes, Romario? Okay, it's not. The following words can be used to describe the tone, the formal, informal. There's a humorous tone. It can use a serious tone. The tone can be dispassionate. It can be enthusiastic. It can be neutral. It can be biased. It can be authoritarian. It can be persuasive. It can be indignant. It can be benign. It can be gentle. It can be cynical. It can be sarcastic. So these are some words that we can use. The formal tone is used if the person is trying to establish something serious. An informal tone is used, again, kind of linked to the register in a way. The informal tone is used based on his particular purpose. It's a topic that is light-hearted. So if the writer is also addressing his peers or teenagers, yeah man, I'm going to send it or addressing teenagers is going to be informal. Neutral means that there is no position that is taken, so he's just stating the information. obviously the example a while ago would not be neutral because he is actually, his opinion and his feeling is coming into play. Biased is self-explanatory. It simply means that there's a particular preference or prejudice for a topic or against a topic. Enthusiastic, dispassionate, um, authoritarian, persuasive. Indignant is suggesting somewhat that the person is harsh or using a matter-of-fact kind of tone, meaning that the person definitely wants to get across what it is that he has to say. So he is using an indignant tone. A benign tone is actually suggesting a neutral tone as well. All right, sarcastic, gentle, cynical can also be used in persuasive writing as well. All right, gentlemen, I want to thank you wholeheartedly for taking the time out to listen to the presentations. Uh, I think this has been very informative, and I think this is going to definitely help you guys in your exams. I won't be having any webinars for now. The next one I'll be having is further down, closer to the exam in May, when you guys are on study leave and we can see each other face to face. I'll do the same 3 nights going into your exam. All right, that is if you're not preparing for. Oh no, study leave, someone. Do you? I think you have study leave.
No,
Yeah,
sir,
man.
we don't have study leave. We just
Oh,
take
you
leave
guys
when
just
we
take
want
your
to.
leave. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, Mario. All right, that makes sense. Okay, gentlemen, so I'm going to send this to you right away.
Good job, sir.
Man, thank you, no problem. I'm wishing you guys all the best in your exam tomorrow, and I really hope that a little tired. I hope that it goes a far way in helping you guys tomorrow. Remember, we're going to be starting at 12:45. I will be in class so that I do not get in trouble with my bosses, but I won't necessarily teach anything. That's the morning session that we have, but I will be there. I'll answer your questions and facilitate your questions, but then the exam is going to be at 12:45. I think we are going to be using the room downstairs. Dylan, I think your classroom is going to be used for your exam center. Romaro, I think you should be upstairs in room 29 or room 30. But I'll confirm this for you guys tomorrow. All right? Everybody, this is me signing out. Peace. Walk
Wait,
good.
sir, 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 sir,
Yeah.
sir, sir,
Oh, question.
sir, sir, sir.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
sir.
No problem. You're welcome, guys. You're welcome. Yes, question?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, I am begging. I am begging, sir. Please, before you go bed,
Mm-hmm.
pray for me, sir. Pray for me. Sir, cause honestly, sir, probably I may wet my pants tomorrow, but please, sir,
Sorry,
just pray for me, sir.
okay. I will pray for all of you. I will pray for all. But I'll pray for you specifically, Romaro. And as I said,
Yes,
Romaro,
sir.
I think
I
you're just
am
very
begging.
dramatic and you know, say you're going to match it up tomorrow. So I don't know why it is that you're fretting, but I will pray for you nonetheless.
Sir, make sure no, sir. Please, me I'm begging no, sir.
Well, yes, Romaro, I will remember to pray for you.
Alright, give thanks, sir.
All right, Romaro. All right. Good night, everybody. Okay, I need to